Welcome to the podcast that discusses storytelling from all angles to help you and us answer the call when the muse screams, "Tell the damn story." We'll be exploring the challenges of being creative in fiction, illustration, comics, film, and nonfiction. All right, so we're back. Gents, let's talk about the process. Tim had been kind enough to ask us about how we power through. Now, let's just take it in little chunks. Okay, you got a project, you have to prepare for it. Let's get a couple of things going for how do you prepare for your project. Let's start with Alex, then we'll go with Tim.
Okay, I mean, depending on the project, but in general, I gather as much information about the subject matter as I possibly can. If it's a new character that I've never worked on before, but it's somebody else's character, then I want to fill my head with what that's character about and storylines. If it's an environment or a location that I've never dealt with or a subject matter I've never dealt with, then I try and, again, immerse myself in that by pulling together as much information, read the information so that I'm more comfortable with the subject and the arena, and then it's easier for me to write the story and move the characters through it.
So you're a big researcher before you start the project?
If it's a project, like, again, if we're talking, I've written, let's say, Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, I grew up watching that, so I know a lot about the characters and so forth and so on. But the setting, for instance, I had them in Seattle once, so I had to do research on Seattle because I don't know the city that well. And the more information I got on Seattle, the more it expanded the story for me. So in that case, yes.
Excellent. Tim, how about you? How do you prep for a big project?
Well, research is visual research, a little bit different these days than just grabbing reference. In many cases, what you're doing is you're not only grabbing reference to use to make sure your drawings and the images you have, but in certain cases, the reference that you're using literally is taken from the web. It's literally taken from the web. So, for example, if I have an image of a horse, that horse literally is ripped from the internet. And this is why my drawings are so good sometimes. All right, and that's pretty much it.
I got to tell you, I do a couple of different things. I love index cards. I will get pockets full of them. I don't even know what notes are on here. But I will put one idea per card. You get the general idea on the plain side, and then I write notes about it on the line side, and I just pile those up, kind of free form, whatever. And then I don't find myself doing heavy research before I start writing. I get the notes down on where I'm going and what I want to do, and then when I start hitting, wow, I know nothing about this. For City of Pain, which hopefully will be out a little later, a couple of months from now, I wound up having to do a lot of research on human trafficking. So that might be a month of reading before I start writing. What I find with, for example, Blackjack, I'll get an idea, and then I have the iPhone and the iPad near me as I'm writing, and as I come across it, well, what would happen here? What would the Egyptian word for this be? Or what would an Egyptian city actually look like if it was near the desert? Then I find myself doing a little bit and then going right back in. This is something I'm experimenting with right now. I used to think, oh my God, you'll go into a wormhole and you'll never get your writing done. But I find I probably spend no more than 2 or 3 minutes looking at something, and then I write it, especially first draft, because it doesn't have to be perfect first draft. You get the idea down, and then when I'm finished writing for the day, I can always do additional research?
You mentioned Blackjack. The first Blackjack story I did for the comics, Second Bite of the Cobra, all takes place in the Middle East, and the quote-unquote antagonist, the villain, if you will, I did a lot of research about the Tuaregs and what was going on in that era at that time. But the idea for the story and the basic thread of the story at the beginning and somewhat of the middle and the end was already in my head. But I found, like Chris was saying, at a certain point, I wanted to feel more secure about, especially I'm dealing with somebody else's culture, having more information because it allowed me to continue with my idea. Okay, you're not off the wall. And the other thing was it fed me information that allowed me to even expand on the story. So that's just the way I was working in that.
Okay, now let's go to when you're in it. Okay, you've done whatever you need to prep and you're in it. And let's say it's a project that's more than one day, right? How do you get yourself in every day? How do you get the flow to continue from day to day or restart the next day? Give us some advice. Tim, what do you think?
Well, I find that you know, it's a little bit different for me because I have actually created a lifestyle that allows me to not get bogged down with for pay work. I actually have a lot of time to be able to sit down in the studio. And when I'm in the zone, that's really just a matter of hopefully focusing on answering your question here, is getting in, is once you start, you just do everything you can to stay in. You just have to make sure you get enough sleep. I hope that answers the question.
Tim Fielder, the envy of millions, ladies and gentlemen. Alex, how about you? How do you stay in it from day to day?
I'm going to be what might be maybe 30% of the writers in the world. I don't always. It's you know, there have been times in my life, in the simpler portions of my life, where I could day after day. There also were times in my life when I got in the zone, like Tim puts it, and I would sit down and I'd write in my underwear for days and go nowhere near the shower and hardly sleep and get the whole thing done. I think in terms of discipline, if life doesn't get in the way, because my life is a bit more fragmented. There we go. Or it's supposed to fragmented. If life doesn't get in the way, then I will try and do at least 2 hours a day on writing, whether it's in the morning, afternoon, evening, home, or wherever. I try and give myself a certain period of time, knowing that I have a deadline that I really must reach. And the hardest thing for me in doing that is when I'm trying to write something and it doesn't sound perfect in my head and it's not hitting the paper the way I want it, and I get pissed about it, and then I'll try and go longer, and it's hard for me to move away from that. But other than that, you know, I just try and give myself a certain amount of time every day to get to it.
I'm going to push you, Alex. Let's talk about, just for a minute, you've had, let's say you've had a really splintered week, right? This is pulling you, that is pulling you, this is pulling you. How do you get back in, right? So many people who are watching this want to know that secret. Worst week in the world, how do you get back to the writing?
Okay. Willpower is a big part of it. No, it is. It's
yes,
a big part of it.
What does that mean for you?
Well, no, I'm going to get into it, but I'm going to try and be succinct. Depending on my attitude at the time, I can be pissed about everything else that's coming at me, but I got to get this damn work done. It can be my escape from everything that's coming at me, but I got to get this work done. So, oh wait, you know what? I'm going to be working on blackjack for the next 2 hours. I can at least control that. It's a mind game of knowing you got to get the work done. You have to. You're responsible for that, whether it's the dollar that's coming in or it's your passion. You got to get the story done. So part of it is saying I am the creator or I am the writer. I am the foreman of this project. I am the product itself ultimately. It's not going to exist if I don't do it. So you give yourself that and then you push. Yeah, well, you push. And for me, it's a matter of if I have to get away from everybody, if I have to go to a diner somewhere, if I have to write on the train where I can ignore people, it's about finding a place where it's yours for that moment. You're in your head. It's your place. You can ignore anybody else and everything else and get the job done because that's the job. Whether it's for you as an independent or it's for one of the big companies, it doesn't matter. You have to get it done, and it's partly a mind game of getting it done.
One of the things that I love is that about you, particularly Alex, is that you didn't even notice that the places you mentioned to go and write are among the most noisy places in the world. You live in New York City. You said a diner. You said a subway. So, ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't need to be a monastery. It doesn't need to be your own sanctum sanctorum. You can write wherever it works for you. For me, there's a couple of practical tricks that I can suggest. Um, I think for me, the index cards work a lot to get me started because I'm looking, and what I say to myself is I don't have to write the whole novel, just write out what that card is. And then the flow starts. Another trick, this is one that a lot of people use. I don't tend to use it that much, but just to help, sometimes people stop in the middle of a sentence or just before the end of a scene the day before, and then you read like a paragraph or two from what you wrote yesterday, and you see the sentence is almost finished. You finish that sentence and you're back in. I tend to write short, quick chapters, so I'll allow myself to go back one chapter, edit that, and then you're back in the flow. So those are a couple of ways to get you back in. A nice cup of tea or your favorite beverage and a little snack, that could be a good way to con yourself into it. You can have this if you begin to write. So there are some ways. Now, guys, what I'm looking for, we're going to start with Tim. Okay, you're getting to the end.
Yeah.
It's been there for a while. You can see the end, but how do you actually get there? How do you get yourself to finish the project?
Okay. Very good question, and it actually leads into what you were mentioning earlier. The shame of knowing that the project would not be done, and it's on me this time, is not. I mean, I don't want to feel the disappointment, because I felt disappointment before in my career. I don't want to feel the disappointment of not having come through for myself. So yes, this project is for, money, and it's for Alex, and that's great. But it's really selfishly for me, because it is my return to the world, to the comic world. So to be clear, I treat it, every project now must be my absolute best work. That's one. That sustains me when it gets laborious. Also, music is very, very important to what I do. John Barry, John Barry is the composer of the Blackjack soundtrack. He's done a and he's been doing a great job now for the last 2 weeks.
Can you tell us who John Barry is?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. John Barry is the musician, the orchestrator of all of the James Bond movies.
Ah, fantastic.
The Ipcris Files, a lot of the Harry Saltzman's projects, but he was also great at doing stuff that wasn't action-oriented, like Born Free, and just really, really a great composer, and his stuff gets me in the mood, and yeah, he's the guy for Blackjack.
I just want to quickly say that you mean that John Barry is scoring Blackjack in your house, as opposed to we've got a deal, because my heart just went, really? John's doing that?
Alex, I want to go with two. I want to get back to how you finish, but since we're on music, do you listen to music when you're writing?
Yes, oddly enough. If I'm writing in a nice flow and it's going really well, yeah, I like music going in the background. I do find that sometimes, though, if I'm doing a particular scene where the dialogue is intense and it's battering back and forth in my head, I may want total silence. Or funny, like I'm in a diner and everything like that. But believe it or not, I zone out or I filter out everything. The dialogue in my head is all I hear. and people's reactions to that dialogue, or the characters' reactions to that dialogue, is all I hear. And so music would be a distraction. But if I'm just writing a certain scene, or dialogue and everything's flowing well, and yeah, I will definitely have music on, and it depends on the mood of what I should say, it depends on the material that I'm writing. It affects the type of music that I want that will bring about a certain mood.
I'll give you 30 seconds of my music experience, and then we're going to go back to how you finish. I can't write, or I thought for the longest time I couldn't write while music was playing with lyrics, especially not Bob Dylan, because I would pay attention to the lyrics and all that sort of stuff. So I was doing a lot of soundtracks and all that sort of stuff. For City of Pain, which I was writing a lot of last summer, there's a radio station in the New York City area. It's actually up in Rockland County, called 107.1 The Peak, and they play kind of new music. I guess you would say it was rock, or post-rock, whatever. I have no idea why, but it flowed. When that station was on, the writing flowed. So, when something's working, you don't question it, right? So it was fascinating to find, and they were lyrics, they were singing lyrics there all the time. I have no explanation, but I'm not, knock on wood, I'm not going to knock it, I'm going to keep writing. Now, how do you get to the end?
It depends on the project. Again, I'm that way. Blackjack, for instance, some of the projects I'm in a car with no brakes racing downhill. It's one of those scenes with the winding road, and there's a cliff you can go off of, and I'm just zooming, and somehow I know I'm going to make it to the bottom and find a way of skidding and stopping the car before I crash, because it's that kind of adrenaline rush, and I'm excited and I'm thrilled to be getting there. On stories that are less enjoyable, thank God I'm almost at the end. And I find that, especially if it's something I'm not enjoying, I'm really not enjoying, I want it to end. I want to get it to the end so that then I can go back and fix it. I know that if I end this, get through the pain, I can then step back, I can take a look at the whole piece, I can find what I need to go back through it and make it right. And make it what it needs to be. Because no matter whether I'm doing something that I love or something that, oh God, I got to write this because it's going to pay the gas bill or whatever, I want it to be my best. Just like Tim was saying, I want it to be my best work. I don't want to give anybody hack stuff.
I'm gonna tag to that, because it depends entirely for me what draft I'm on. If I'm at the first draft, it just needs to get done. That's the entire goal, is to get the story out. Second draft, I go through it again, and I repair what worked, what didn't work, and all that sort of stuff. And then the third one is, of course, you got an eye on a deadline, but also you got to get it to your satisfaction. And now the story has been done. You've fixed, oh, that's a big hole. Oh, wait a minute, that person was dead and then alive in a later later scene or whatever. You fix all that, and then when I go back, that's when the story begins to haunt me. All of a sudden my wife will be like, you've been in the shower for half an hour. I say, oh no, I'm writing. Because it's like a whole scene, and I'm just standing there in the rain. That should happen. That's what should, And we mentioned in an earlier episode that I was out socially. I was watching James McMurtry play live, and an entire new ending of the Revolt of the Red Star just appeared during one particular song. Wow. And I knew in my heart, yep, I have to do that. So that's all third draft stuff for me, where is it right? Is it as pure as, like that? Which is what you seem to be talking about as you're trying to go get there all the time. Get to that satisfactory, yes, it's the way it should be. That's the toughest place to get to, isn't it?
Yeah, I write from the heart a lot. I mean, even, people say, how can you write Tarzan or Blackjack or Scooby-Doo or Archie? I need to write from the heart. I write from the head and the heart. The kid in me, if you will, enjoys the experience, enjoys the creativity, enjoys the story idea, and you live it and you breathe it, and the character's alive, and so I'm writing that story because it's alive in me. The professional, pragmatic approach to writing is not the place I spend the most time. I write from my emotions and from my energy and from that, and then I go back and do the pragmatic aspects of it. And it's very hard for me when my energy, my emotions, or whatever are not there when I need them, because then I'm leaning on the pragmatic because I know I got to get it done. And I have to tell myself, don't worry, Alex, it's okay. You'll get it finished, this draft, and then you can go back. It's all right. Daddy's not going to spank you. So, that's sort of what's going on with me. I'm that kind of writer the same way I was that kind of actor.
Right. I'm more of a layered guy. Tim,
Yeah.
are you a first? I always watch, and we get a lot of emails from Tim. Tim will say, "I added this. I got to take a look at this." We saw one particular thing from
Check your
Good Media,
email.
right?
Yeah.
We get a little email where
Yeah.
there's a great picture, absolutely amazing picture of Blackjack, cigar in his mouth, and then there'll be a picture of very similar picture of Blackjack, no cigar in his mouth, and then we'll get another one, the cigar's back in his mouth, and the smoke's coming up, and well, I fixed his eyes, and his eyes are staring at you like they're gonna come out and beat you. Those to me are Tim's rewrites. What do you think, Tim?
They're rewrites, but they are also me taking into consideration Alex, his edits. So there are sometimes I've done images that I considered finished, but then he picked something out because he says, hey, his head is too short, or it's too long, or hey, shouldn't he should look more pensive or less pensive. These are things that are part of the process. Now, by the way, is that annoying? Should I stop doing that, guys?
What?
Doing what?
Should I stop sending the images?
No, I love
No.
it. I love it so much.
I didn't want to make some, because I think
No, you have no, Tim. No, that makes my day when if I got my cell phone, I pop up my cell phone, there's this fantastic image just as I'm about to come out, going into a lousy meeting or whatever. So no, don't worry about that.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm between classes, or I'm between some of the other stuff I do, and then there's a Tim Fielder, and it's usually Tim Fielder 1, Tim Fielder 2, Tim Fielder 3.
Oh, okay.
So no, but it's part of the energy, part of the process, and I think if there's anything that we can say to aspiring creatives out there is that you do have to trust the process, and you do have to feel that you get your initial work down, then you get it right, then you polish it, or as Alex says, right from the heart, or as Tim Field says, strap yourself in and don't shower and just keep working. That's how you tell the damn story. If you want to hear more about the show or any of us, go to tellthedamnstory.com.